it's a very good example to bring Leonard Cohen, because he actually tried at least, well, he tried 3 traditions. He tried, so he was educated and raised in Judaism. He moved into an exploration into Christianity, and then he moved into Buddhism, practicing at least for 10 years in that Boulder Mountain somewhere. And then he came down, and when he came down the hill, he actually started the return to a different Judaism, I think, than that one that he was educated. I know that he was looking for the Zohar, and he was looking for sort of translations which were not available, so he took it in Hebrew. So I know he studied. I don't know to what depth, but I think why I'm bringing him as an example, because first he very much represent the journey of the sensibility and sensitivity of Jewish people through, looking for a renewal of their faith somewhere else through different language. Okay, it's true in, I would say, before Corona time. It's true for the last at least 2 to 3 generations of young people after the army going to India or going into search. I know that in America there is even a new term which is called Jubo, meaning, so it seems that I will tie it in a minute. It seems that the fear, or the I would say the fear of from Christianity is sort of ebbing, and what is coming in is the need to actually examine moral value. Moral value, and Hasulam speaks about it, that the new value will be something that we will be able to determine in sociology, more in sociology than the queen of let's say 19th, 20th century, which was history and philosophy. So it will be more sociology. So this putting apart, it relates to language, because at the end, yes, you have to get to a certain surrendering our ability to hear. Okay, we hear the calling of, most of the time, 99.9%, we hear the call of our ambitions, of our ego, of our so the unfulfilled dreams, or measuring ourselves to against success inside. I said inside the measurement of value of the corporal world. So for this, you need to surrender and become quiet, in terms of, even in the deepest term of prayer. You don't pray for it, meaning that the definition of prayer does not belong to this kind of wish to fulfill, to empower the self that is the ego, the self that is the will to receive to oneself. So this you need to surrender, but it's a different surrender than the Buddhist surrender. It's not annihilating it. It's not nullifying it. Okay, it's not an extension of the ego. It's actually sort of harnessing it to a different purpose with a different intention. So first, we need to hash it. Yeah. So we need to hash it, meaning to make it unheard. Yeah. So it's not that it's truly it's never. And if a Buddhist is honest, it never stops speaking. Never. It's just a question of whether you. It's in the midst of the noise you make. You know, you made all these languages of request and wishing and desires. You make it white noise. You turn it into a white noise. And then you search, and then this is another surrender. You search for an ability that the corporal senses do not have. So when we speak about ibu or impregnation, actually what we are asking for is capability, a spiritual capability, even if you like spiritual senses, that the name of it is sfirot, okay, or measurement, to be able actually first to listen to something else, and then to have the language capability of what is called sacred language. Meaning, as you know, Leonard Cohen at the last moment need the language of saying I'm here, hineni, and he doesn't use the English word, he used the Hebrew word. Okay, so this is first to understand that we need to surrender to the admission that in the way we use our senses, or in the way that I would say corporal ecology is educating us, conditioning us, and actually developing our sensitivities and senses, prevents us from actually being able to hear anything that is divine. So the ideal of the Buddhist is the silence. The ideal of Israel is over the silence. The silence is a station. Is a station in order to be able to go through, you know, not using, one can say, the dominance of the corporal listening or hearing, and to actually develop a new sense. Hearing is actually hearing is being extended to us. Spiritual hearing is being extended to us by Bina. If you will hear, if you will listen to my command, it means that it speaks all the time. We are not able to hear. More than that, we are not able to feel, and definitely we are not able to extract from ourselves a state of being the echo box of the word of the divine. Okay, this is a language. This is a different language. Okay, this is a language that has the power of creating. Okay, it's the language of prophets, and actually we have a prophecy that all my sons and daughters will prophesize, meaning they will have that language, because prophecy in Hebrew has to do with a specific sacred dialect, you can say, which is called Niv Sfatim. Okay, this can bring, this is what is prophet in or prophetess in. It brings, It brings something new. What do it mean? It brings it's not foreseeing. It's preparing that which is coming. This is prophecy, and it's called the world to come. Is the whole study of Kabbalah is preparing ourselves for understanding and being able to respond to that which is coming, and that's the beginning of what that language can do. It can prophesize, meaning it can bring our consciousness to a state of readiness to the extension of the light. Okay, so silence is a necessary step, but not the purpose. We consider it's not the purpose from Bereshit, because the first thing that actually the Creator is asking Adam to perform is to speak, is to say names, to utter names, of everything. Meaning, what it means to actually to be able to pronounce and to speak the name of something. If it says that human consciousness has the duty of giving every living creature, or as the Buddhists will say, every sentient being, its purpose, meaning it's to locate and to endow it with meaning. And that is through speech, through the name that it calls. It's to call something by name is to actually define its calling. But this is a completely different language and different ability, and a different ability to speak it. Okay. This is why we actually are not able to understand Torah without the sort of mediation and preparation of the Zohar or Ari to prepare us to be able to start to listen to what it actually says, not what we would like it to say or how it sort of coincide with our wishes and desires. So it is a revolution in the perception of the origin of language, because when we study what is the origin of languages, usually not like Torah, we attribute it to the development of the need of human communication, of building a society, or building communication that will allow them to sort of profit from each other in a more efficient way, you can say. Okay. This language has a completely different purpose. It needs to serve, not to self-serve, but to serve something completely different with its language. I mean, the language of creation. And if we ask, what is the first quality of being able to speak in the language of creation, is actually to be able to create or to bestow the highest living condition for every human creature. And then living condition is not existence. Existence, it's imperative, because it cannot you cannot bestow on something that does not exist. But what I'm saying is that it's not in order to create a more efficient cartel or more efficient even I would say uniformity of interest in order to gain more security, more profit, more comfortability, whatever. It's a language that it will sort of obey the nature of it if the user, the conscious that uses it, will obey the law of bestowal. Okay. So the root of it is what we call the line of ever. Why? Because this, if we look at the book of Bereshit, we see that ever is the one that actually from the generation of the Tower of Babylon, he's the only one who wished to remember that language. The language that was one language and many things before, before it divided into nations and into different languages, meaning different interests, and forgetfulness set into the state of forgetting the unity that was amongst people, sons of Adam, in remembering the presence of divinity in their life, okay, and how to communicate with it. So language is very important, but it needs to, like every word that we touch, it needs to redefine itself, definitely its purpose. So there is we can see it even we can say it. We just studied it on Thursday night. That the first meeting between Pharaoh and Yosef should ended by Yosef being the Pharaoh, because the law of Egypt was that the one who is more proficient in all languages is actually declared, because it has, the measurement was wisdom, he's declared to be the Pharaoh. And Yosef knew the sacred language, which Pharaoh did not know. But this is where, this is where the fall of Yosef starts. He actually obey or agree, depends how you see it, to Pharaoh's request that he will give him everything but the throne and but the chair, everything to rule Egypt. And we see that by the end, when in our portion, when Yaakov is asking to be buried in Israel, actually Yosef needs to ask Pharaoh for permission. I mean that his position is already beginning to lessen and to weaken. It's this is why Yaakov wished to be buried, and then he realized that it's not going to end, because they need to go through a deep exile and redemption and more exile in order to actually bring themselves to the true need and the true memory of how to use sacred language. Okay, yes. So it's a whole, and as well the way some of the explanation of how Yosef identified himself to his brothers is through language. That he spoke Hebrew to them. Okay. Because he sees them, but he's so much like the Egyptian, they cannot see him. They cannot see him, or they cannot see beyond one can say, beyond everything that he puts, all the languages, if you like, that he puts on himself. So we can see that a lot of what we study through the portion is actually sorting out language.
So just what I'm hearing, we say in the Shabbat prayer, we said the Shabbat prayer, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. You're saying it goes way beyond that. This is how I'm seeing this now. It's not the meditations of my heart.
No, it's not the meditation of the heart that I know. And because it ends with it's the name Lord. Adonai. Yeah. He's my rock and my savior and my redeemer. It means that everything that I say in the language that I say, please translate it to the language that of redemption, of redeeming, of translate it into a redeeming language, I would say, not language of redemption, redeeming language. Okay, so it's actually a surrender and an admission that I don't have that kind of language.
Exactly.
Take the impediment of my speech and my intention and turn them into something that will be a redeeming language. Yeah, this. Okay. It's I want to say something else which is a bit actually teaching. I think it at a certain level as well, studying with. Now it doesn't matter actually if you speak Hebrew or not, but there are some terms, as I said, that you need to know them by the roots of them, which is the root language, which is to do with Hebrew, in order for them to transfer you from state to state. Okay. So it is important that the one that teaches Kabbalah has a very, very deep affinity and sensitivity to the language, to the Hebrew language. Okay. Because usually it's to do as well with the understanding of corporal language. Usually we use language, meaning we mold it, and the way we use it as well sort of form our consciousness, and our consciousness and new discoveries actually go back and form the language that actually sort of allows us to perform the purposes of the consciousness, the purposes of the will to receive in the best way. But it means that we use the language. I would say I would like to say 90%, but I would say 70%. With 70% proof that Hebrew does not act like this. We cannot use, as I can see from the history in this land, Hebrew is doing us. We are not doing Hebrew. It changes us. It changes us in terms of, it's not, what we see outwardly is going back to what is called, I don't know, the Jewish library, it's the library of the sacred books. But I think what happens is, because we speak Hebrew, we think we're using it, but actually it forms us into purposes and interests that we did not design and even did not desire. Just awaken in us something that we did not plan. So maybe sometimes we'll do a series on it, how it works. But it works like this. It means the moment a group of people surrender to a certain language, in other nations, it creates culture. When you speak in Hebrew, it creates connection to the Creator. So it does not create culture, though we say we have, literature in Hebrew. We're very proud of it, but this is not the true process. The true process is hidden, and then if you look at if you have a trend site, you see that something else is changing us, not the use, our use of Hebrew, but the Hebrew use of us. I would say. Okay, so just to remember that as well. Okay. Okay. This is why you don't. It's not so important at our generation to study Talmud because of Aramaic. It was not written in Hebrew, so it takes the real part of actually preparation, which was happening for over 2,000 years. And some yeshivas today do not speak Hebrew, and they do not actually study Torah, Mikra. They study only Talmud and Mishnah. Mishnah, okay, you have the Hebrew there, but Talmud, you don't have the Hebrew. So this is why they're slow to catch up with the notion of the importance of Messiah, Mashiach ben Yosef, meaning the declaration and the independence of Israel, because the Hebrew did not do that in them. So this is why we should look at them differently. You see, secular Israelis recognize the Orthodox one as their brothers. It's as though it changed, but they do not recognize the secular one as their brothers. It changed polarity. Okay. Yes.